Good morning.
Hi, good morning, and hello, everyone. I am Veronica Mihai, and I am apparently live on Pitch Investors Live application from my mobile in my living room.
Huh.
Would you
Yeah,
like me to start maybe with giving a brief summary or introduction about who I am and what I do? Shall we
yeah,
do it this way?
sure. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll do the same thing. I mean, I'm Matt Smith, and I'm here live actually from Colorado in a hotel lobby at 4 a.m. So very glad to be
I'm so
here.
sorry
And
for the
no, no,
time.
no. Of course, no, don't worry
I'm
about
London based and it's 11 a.m. here.
it.
I wasn't aware where you're located, but I think that, well, we can say this is the magic of Pitch Investors Live platform where you can connect from anywhere, anytime, any place.
Exactly.
And exactly. So, as I said, my name is Veronica, and I've been in blockchain space and cryptocurrency for the past 3.5 years. Initially, as co-owning a mining farm here in the UK, and investing in startups as in angel investors in few startups in tech-based mainly, and as well as investing in early stages of some of the ICOs, such as Waves, Ethereum, and Docusign, and many others that there's no point in going through them right now. I'm also a founding partner of a cryptocurrency trading hedge fund that is soon to be launched. And I'm very happy to be on Pitch Investors Live platform, an app from my mobile that can be downloaded from Android or iOS whenever suitable. Now, it would be great if I can hear a little bit about yourself. I did read your summary. However, I'll give you the opportunity to tell us more.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Matt Smith. I'm originally from Florida, and I'm actually currently a student in Dallas. And I was interested in blockchain technology back in high school, and I read about the Ethereum. Um, just got extremely interested in Ethereum, and then I kind of just figured out that there was a disconnection between uh, using different cryptocurrencies actually for, transactional purposes to a daily capacity. So when Ethereum came out, I said, wow, this is a, great next step towards a solution for that. And then I just started really picking at it myself, and then I came up with Cybrswype, which ended up originally being a retail model. It was designed for us to be able to use Ethereum, at a daily capacity at different retail locations. But then I realized that nobody was really doing this on a more international level. So I just built out a B2B platform in my dorm room at SMU in Dallas, and now we have over 250 both buyers and sellers that have registered to the account, and they're everywhere from South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. And I've been really excited to be a part of it, and it's me and a few other people on the team, and we're just excited to be on pitch. Which again, I'm here from Colorado. I'm in Denver at the moment. Here actually for a couple of leads with the platform, and it's pretty cool to be able to connect with someone all the way in London, especially someone who's uh, very experienced in blockchain technology, especially in Ethereum, and has kind of been around in the space. So yeah, I'm looking forward to diving deeper into it, but that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And I'm more than happy to go anything specific. I know that you received a couple items in an email. It was an executive summary and a pitch deck and everything. So I don't know if you had the time to go through that. Um, if so, I'm here to answer any questions. If not, I can kind of verbally start going through it piece by piece, how it was designed, how we got to where we are now, etc. But that's
I
kind
had a
of the
chance to have a look, to be honest, but I think probably it will be best if you can say it in your own words, briefly, not in extreme detail, but
oh, of
still,
course.
so yeah, please do.
Yeah, of course. So really what it came down to was trying to make it peer-to-peer. I kind of got inspired by the Swift network, the Swift banking network. Essentially, they're just a telecommunications platform, right? All they do is they transmit messages from bank to bank. So I said, all right, well, how can I do the same thing where, allowing two different major entities to transact, in a trusted environment? Because if I tell you that I'm going to ship you something and you tell me you're going to spend $10 million on it, there's a lot of barriers to that transaction, right? Especially if you don't know who they are. There's no banks involved, and that's the beauty of blockchain and the whole rest of it. So essentially, all I did was create a platform where the process involved makes it very collaborative, almost, for these buyers and sellers to interact, right? So both buyers and sellers, they register with a U.S. telecom, or like a U.S. Phone number that would be validated under U.S. telecom. And then from there, they create security questions, very similar to any other account. Seller creates a contract, and then from there, the seller actually has to invite a buyer to their contract. It's not like an Alibaba or some sort of other e-commerce platform where you're browsing different smart contracts, for different items for sale, whether it's any sort of large commodity or something smaller. The beauty of the platform is it's very broad in scope, just the same way Swift is, right? I mean, Swift is just sending messages, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm not really tailoring myself to one specific industry or the other. So from there, once the two sellers, the seller and buyer, engage, they're now engaged in a smart contract, which, as you know, is written on Ethereum, and that's really the main currency that the platform uses. And then from there, the buyer is funding into the smart contract, proving that funds are available. They lock the funds in. Then we use Docusign API, so the seller can upload different legal documents, any sort of shipping information, limited liability, whatever they want to whatever they use traditionally in their own transactions, they get to still use that in this case. And we actually allow that to be written on the smart contract. So we're adding external documents to the smart contracts. And then from there, they can all do that electronically through Docusign, and then the buyer comes back, approves the smart contract in real time, and then those funds get sent from the smart contract to the seller's wallet. And that's really, in a nutshell, how it works. It's extremely simple, and it's very conditional. It's very much like a conversation. The seller is providing the subset, the buyer is responding, countersigning, and approving. And the beauty of all that is, since I'm not the wallets, the private and public keys, are owned by the users, and the smart contracts are owned by the users. Essentially, the way that it works is our protocols write it and then deliver the smart contract to the user's wallet ID, and then it's written for that unique identifier on the blockchain. So we don't own anything. The platform is designed to be impartial in every single way, which requires no input from me or anyone else on the team. It's entirely peer-to-peer. So really, the whole premise was to make this kind of decentralized blockchain version of Swift. And currently, everything is locked in Ethereum, and we're actually building stability controls, which is kind of our Gen 2 layer. And the stability controls will be able to lock in the price in USD, which will prevent the use for stablecoins. I'm sure you've read a whole lot about stablecoins. So we're actually very excited about that. That's kind of what's on the horizon for us. But currently, the platform has been live for about 32 days. Like I said, we have 250 buyers and sellers that have registered from all over the world. And right now, the model has been using representation agreements with a handful of reps. And they work off commission off of our settlement fees, which are non-scaling and the transparent. They're a 3% settlement fee. They pretty much go and solicit this all over the world, whether it's in South America to different oil and gas companies, or in Africa for different agricultural companies that are exporting goods all over the world. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what it is. Our fees are represented by kind of getting rid of a lot of these different intermediaries in the process. Swift requires all the different banks to be a part of it as well, and normally there are brokers involved in these large international transactions, and we're really getting rid of a lot of those intermediary obstacles. And by doing that, we're able to save a lot of money on cost for these different buyers and sellers. So it's been really exciting so far, and that's like I said, that's the platform in a nutshell.
Okay.
So yeah,
I have a few questions.
of
So,
course.
first one would be, so all of these things that are happening, practically what you're doing is connecting to businesses, and that connection is done through your platform. However, the transaction itself happens on Ethereum blockchain. What I mean is the actual transfers of funds. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is validated, obviously, by Ethereum blockchain through
The
miners
nodes.
and yes, the nodes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, one question that I have is, do you see any impact on your business model or on your platform if or when Ethereum goes to a proof of stake model of validation?
So actually, so far, we don't really see too much of an issue, because even though that we're so far Ethereum is the only coin that we are offering as a medium of transaction, we're actually getting ready to release other currency pairs as well.
Okay.
So we're not really totally, I guess I should say, kind of confined or limited by Ethereum. But in terms of when and if they change to a proof of stake model, we're not entirely worried about that really affecting the model at which we have right now on Cybrswype. No.
Okay. You mentioned you have a certain number of clients, let's say, on the platform already. How many transactions have happened in the 32 days since you have went live?
In the 32 days, the transactions that we've had, they've all been transactions done by us. We've had about 73 transactions that we've done. The largest beta, we're calling them beta transactions. The largest one that we've done was about 80,000 USD worth of Ethereum. But these international transactions, they take a little bit of time. They're not like overnight transactions, so to speak, and that's something that we've been learning through the process. Most of the time, the payable dates are 30 days after the smart contracts engage. But so far, yeah, all the transactions have been done internally through the team to make sure that it works every single day. We run about 5 to 10 a week, sort of just about. A little more here and there depending on when we're doing new updates and patches, but we've done about in the low 70s.
Okay. The other question that I have is Ethereum, like most blockchains right now, have a limitation in terms of how many transactions they can process. So even if your platform is a layer on top of that, if you look at it, or something that integrates to some level with Ethereum's blockchain, how do you mitigate? Because let's say you will have in the future, let's assume that you will have a multitude of clients in large numbers and they want to process their transactions. I mean, if you look at Swift, because we're comparing with Swift, Swift right now, at least inside Europe, has become quite fast, which means you are able to perform transactions in a limited time, much faster than it used to be before. So what it used to be before, 3 days or something like that, it's actually possible in a day or in a few hours, at least inside Europe, which is still, it's an improvement. Now, if the blockchain that you're integrating with has a limitation on the number of transactions that it can process, then how will you mitigate that?
That's a really good question. So far, the current status of the platform is from as an institutional platform, the volume of the transactions, we're not expecting them to be too high. So in the current status of things, we're actually able to complete an entire buyer-seller cycle within 24 hours. With the new Gen 2 stability controls, we're actually adding a time frame window because that's how we're going to be able to lock in the prices, and we're actually only going to be able to allow the buyer and seller to be vulnerable for a span of 4 hours, a window of 4 hours, and that's what we're using to allow this, over sense of stability to occur in order to not use a stable coin. And the reason why we're able to pick that little window of 4 hours is we've actually filed patents for this platform. And when we were building the retail model, since retail obviously is much higher in volume than any sort of institutional, big B2B transactions, we developed our own protocols to increase the speed of the network. And essentially what it was, just in a nutshell, what the one of our patents was for speed. It was written on the premise that, when you're verifying through the nodes, one can assume based on, the first node and all the way to the 10th node, it's going to be the same as the 100th node. So essentially what the protocol does is it'll go through and it'll verify at 500 unique nodes every single time. So after it verifies the 500 times, it doesn't bother, it'll already verify that that's the value rather than having to go through the hundreds of thousands of millions of nodes. And that's what we did to speed up transactions on the blockchain. So that's what we're doing to kind of mitigate this kind of issue with speed. And that's going to be in our Gen 2 build. And currently, like I said, in the status of things, the institutional volume, we're not too worried about there being an issue with the speeds of actually utilizing the blockchain, utilizing the currency itself. To answer your question, yeah, that's just kind of how we're approaching it.
Okay. Considering that this is a B2B platform, in a way, I understand to say it's peer-to-peer. However, in a way, would it be fair to say that to some level you are an intermediary after all? And
that's. Oh, sorry.
Keep
going.
Go ahead. Yeah,
oh no, no. I was gonna say, that's actually another good point, because people have said the same thing. Oh well, aren't you just another intermediary? And one can look at it the same way. Yes, we are an intermediary, but the nice thing is, to the extent that even a Swift is an intermediary, the kind of decentralization that we're offering is is a little, if we're kind of an intermediary, I mean, we're kind of very low on that scale in comparison to kind of the other institutions that are out there. Because, I mean, beyond the fact of getting rid of all these other entities, if we're just going to look at Swift, for example, Swift is a very centralized kind of institution, centralized in Belgium, of course, with board of directors composed of G10 banking entities. I mean, they're as centralized as you can get to a certain extent. So we can be looked at as an intermediary, yes, but like I said, the platform's designed to be as autonomous as possible. Like we can't view, wallet IDs. We can't view wallet amounts. We can't even see, actually these transactions really occurring. It was designed to be extremely impartial in that way.
Which is great. But I do have to think from a legal perspective, if you look at it, the relationship between two businesses can be quite complex. And, and also, I mean, any company obviously wants to streamline their costs and find better solutions in order to make payments and transfers and so on, which is great. However, they also have to take it in consideration, how will they mitigate any legal situations. So, for example, if it's the case of a refund or a mitigation. I mean, how do you mitigate for cases when businesses have something to fight over, or they don't agree, or someone had a breach of their terms, or any of these legalities? If you
arbitration.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, that's another actually very good question, because actually that's one of the things about escrow and why escrow is a relatively expensive process, right? It's not just because they hold the money and say, hey, we have money here. It's actually also for arbitration, bridging of culture gaps, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
So the platform, actually, the way that I designed the platform and the way that we actually are conducting business currently, is it's working where there's a known buyer and a known seller working with each other. like I said, there's no sort of shopping your best deal, shopping the best contracts. So to add to
No,
that,
no, it's not a shopping, but even as a business, they will
right,
still
like
eventually
there's
work
a
with new companies, with new clients, or new suppliers, or so.
right. So that's why the entire Docusign process was added to this. It adds this layer of legal recourse between the buyer and seller. Um, and that was our biggest thing. We said, okay, well, the biggest issue with decentralization is it's really hard to kind of pin any sort of because there are some supporting entities to a centralized system, right? Like legal recourse, for example. So that's why the whole DocuSign process was very vital to this entire thing, because no business, even though you have the safety of a smart contract, the smart contract really only proves very binary conditionals, right? You offer this, the smart contract is going to offer this in return. But that doesn't, like you said, right? It doesn't offer for these external variables. So that's, like I said, that's what the whole DocuSign process was for, because these buyers and sellers are actually allowed to use the DocuSign platform to legally chat, legally discuss, mark up contracts, change contracts, sign contracts, and that's anything from sales agreements, any sort of duty preferences, any sort of shipping preferences, payable term dates. So really that was a large enhancement to the system to kind of offer that sense of legal arbitration between two entities when something can go awry. And again, when I say the platform was built from a very impartial perspective, it was built to provide the most flexibility, where the buyers and sellers are setting their own terms, they're accepting each other's terms, because I don't want to have a say in kind of what goes on between these two businesses. And I want to be as decentralized as possible, because that's really the beauty of the entire system, or the entire blockchain industry to begin with.
Yeah. I agree with you from this perspective, and I guess in the future either there will be layers built on top of that, or on top of blockchain, that will deal with these kind of things. And I have a personal view that smart contracts will do much more than what they do right now in the future.
I agree.
And there will be you could in the future actually compile a set of smart contracts that can replace small tasks that usually a lawyer performs right now, or a solicitor, or so yeah, that's an entirely different discussion. But I mean, I think it's interesting. I guess another question that I have is, you're mentioning looking at other coins or other blockchains, I guess, because if you look at other cryptocurrencies, then you would look at different blockchains. Which ones in particular do you have in mind, or which ones are you working towards right now of integrating with your platform?
US dollar Litecoin, US dollar Ripple. Those are the other two currency pairs.
Okay. Why Litecoin?
Litecoin's actually just because I think it's the fourth or the fifth largest market cap coin, and we were adding it because it's actually a pretty easy coin to integrate into our protocol now. We have our eyes on Bitcoin, but we really want to focus on, Ripple USD first, and then kind of branch out from there. But those are the next two that are kind of on the list.
And do you foresee in the future looking at any others, or?
For the time being, these are these are kind of the main three, and then eventually adding Bitcoin to the mix. There are a couple others that are out there that I'm interested to see kind of what happens, simply because I think they're interesting coins. For example, Neo, the Chinese Ethereum.
Yes.
I think that I'm actually kind of curious to see how that plays out, because actually a lot of the interest kind of that's been garnered recently in the last 14 days has actually been in Southeast Asia, Singapore, China, Taiwan. There's been a lot of interested entities over there, and they've actually been discussing, hey, can we use Neo? So it's been kind of subject for discussion for us, but then again, it's still very questionable whether or not it's very secure.
Yes,
or
well, I
very
guess we have
fair.
to wait and see.
Exactly, exactly. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Venezuelan petro.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, we will see where that
yeah,
goes.
yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, all of this is, it's, I mean, it's quite interesting. It's nice. It's, it's a good idea. I think there are others also that are trying to do similar things. So if I have to ask you, would you be able to pick from what is other companies that are there? Do you think you have any competitors, and which one are those?
So far there are the main competitor that I've been watching is ING, the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and ING has produced a platform that's actually very similar in the process flow, right? Seller creates contract, buyer is invited to contract, they set their terms. They're able to process everything without the need of these, different intermediary entities, brokerages. The difference, though, is that ING is not using any sort of um, cryptocurrencies. They're almost kind of like a hybrid. They're using a process that's very similar to the smart contract process, very conditional conversation between two entities, but they're
Mm-hmm.
still using fiat currencies, major fiat notes, and then they do it through their bank, and their bank's kind of acting as the centralized authority. Um, so it's been interesting to watch because it's almost kind of like they built a very similar but wildly different platform. Um, and I've been actually kind of curious to see what they do and whether or not they change over to using cryptocurrencies, because they're actually a relatively progressive bank in the space, and they've been looking at it, they've been toying with it. But in terms of other competitors, there are other ones that I'm not really too impressed with. A lot of the times you see a lot of centralization and a lot of need for input from the actual company itself or the platform itself, and
Yeah.
that's something that I look at that as not really a good selling point in my opinion. I think the more decentralized, the better you are.
Yeah, it's all a matter of opinion for some people, because some are
Right.
saying yes, decentralization is an ideal, but you can't decentralize everything, and you should still have a level of control on certain things. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but here we go. And I do
Right.
believe that probably in the near future, whatever develops, it will be still centralized to some point. I still haven't seen a lot of, especially when it comes to ICOs that are able. Well, I haven't seen any being able of doing something as such. But what I'm trying to say is that are at least talking about a fully decentralized solution to whatever their problem they're trying to solve. It still has a level of centralization or a level of control that sits with them, whether they admit or not.
hmm Yeah, and we actually had the route of doing an ICO about a year ago when we started, and that was something I was very adamant against. I'm not really, depending on the situation, it can make
Mm-hmm.
sense, but I think most of the time, it's just a very good, cash building tool for your business without having to
Yes.
give up any equity. But my problem with ICOs is, if you come up with something, you have to build some pretty lofty promises to sell to someone, and you have to prove a lot of credibility when a lot of these times they don't even have anything built. They're built on the expectation that, hey, we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
um,
It's not also not only that. It's also the fact that they have to, create a certain atmosphere around their project in order to secure
yeah,
that kind of investment. Because when you don't invest for equity, then you're looking at, okay, so how can I make quick returns, and
expectation, yeah.
you know. So
Yes.
then it becomes more about speculation rather than the actual value of the project and what they're trying to achieve. And to be honest with you, if I look at what you just presented and what I went through and what your platform stands for, I wouldn't see how you would integrate a token into it, because it wouldn't serve any purpose.
Correct.
So other than if it is a security token, just to which goes to the same, then you'll end up in the same situation. You're still giving out equity.
Right.
And
And
doing that right now, it's not like there are a lot of security exchanges out there, or and the regulation is the way it is. So yeah,
right.
probably in my opinion, I believe that you took the right approach
I
with
appreciate that.
regards to fundraising. And I think your idea is interesting, definitely. I mean, I could. What I would like to say is, I'd like to maybe communicate outside of this, if possible, and
Of
see if
course.
I can help you in any way. I mean, I can't promise you an investment at this point, simply because I'm really tied up in a hedge fund that I'm launching. So I'm a bit
Which
in
is
your
pretty
position.
incredible, if I may say so myself. I mean, that's another part of this whole equation that I've been looking at is getting into a lot of the trading aspects of this cryptocurrency world. So
Yes.
I bet that's
Yeah,
very
it's
exciting.
indeed that's, and this is the reason why we chose not to go for a hedge fund that invests in ICOs, but mainly to just do trading. So
Right.
leverage the market, play the market, make money
Exactly.
that way.
Exactly.
And but I could definitely try and help you out, maybe connect you with other people or other, if that's okay with you, of course.
No, of course, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
it
I
would
mean,
be
so
good also
far,
if you
yeah,
can,
it's
if you have any financial,
mhm.
information that you can share. Of course, whatever it's shareable,
No, of
that I
course, no,
can. If I introduce it to other people, at least I should be able to send a little bit more information, or you send it yourself further down the line.
okay. Is there a certain way that you prefer to be contacted, or
I will
um,
give you my email address.
okay?
I don't know. I can text it here, or I can give it to Diani, or
Yeah, I mean that, yeah, that'll work. Whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, I'll
yeah.
get it one way or another. So,
Okay, no worries. Okay. Well, I think it was a quite an interesting conversation. I wish you all the best with what you're trying to achieve. And
likewise.
oh, I guess I should ask you, because I mean, I did see the numbers, but for the benefit of this session, how
Mhm.
much did you raise so far, and how much are you looking to raise just
Yeah.
before the close?
So far I've bootstrapped the entire project myself.
Mm-hmm.
We've accumulated up to about 200 um, to get the project from inception all the way past beta and actually going live. And we're looking to raise through the platform, through Pitch, we were looking to raise $250,000 just to build out the next generation and to kind of market the first generation of the product that we have, just so for
Okay.
scaling.
And you're giving equity for that in which?
Yeah, we're doing an equity raise of 250,000 for 10%. The actual full raise was 500,000 for 20%, but I wanted to get a certain amount from this platform, so we were just doing the 250 for 10.
So what's the valuation of your company at the moment?
Well, for the valuation, actually, with that raise, it would have put it at well, actually, no. Your question was currently.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So currently the valuation is somewhere between, I'd probably comfortably say 400,000. I would say just with the money that's put in so far, and then just
Hmm.
kind of the people that we have registered, the amount of volume that they're getting ready to put through.
Okay.
Um, but
And
yeah, that's what
when you
I'd
say
comfortably say.
250,000, 10%, then the valuation that you came up with when you came up with that number, what did you base that
Is
valuation on?
That's a good question. So the valuation is based actually on a couple of the registered users that have been talking to us, the transactions that they're getting ready to do.
Hmm.
Um, and some of these transactions are right. So right now, the biggest one that we actually have that's getting ready to come is 210 million annualized volume
Hmm.
from one group exporting goods to a couple buyers in Singapore, commodities brokerage in Singapore. So doing the math with that, um, the fees on the 210 million would actually exceed that 2.5 million mark. So we wanted to make sure we can give a very good return to the investment just based off that one transaction. So we kind of just valued that because we wanted to give a 3 times multiple on that original investment because the fees off the that transaction annualized alone, just doing the quick math on the top of my head, is somewhere between $6 and $7 million in Ethereum. So for the $200,000 or $500,000 investment raise, you're talking about the 20% of that or the 10% of that would be more than enough to make investors happy, keep them on board, get them very excited about the platform, want us to grow it out and be a part of kind of the different directions and avenues that we go with. So that's kind of where we base those numbers off of.
Okay. My other question is, I think if I look at the market, let's say in the past 1 week, I would say Ethereum price kind of went down a little bit. And
yeah, actually, and that was
yeah,
actually sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was actually kind
no
of
worries.
excited about that all that news.
I'm just thinking, how does fluctuation in cryptocurrency price affect your customers? And why I'm saying is because no matter right now, at this moment, they do not deal in cryptocurrency. So
Correct.
they still pretty much function with fiat. And
Correct.
so how does that work? I mean, doesn't it
That's
scare them
actually
off a little bit?
That's actually a really good question. I'm actually glad that you asked that. So just to kind of reel it back really quick, we were actually really excited to see the price drop, and that's just because it got a lot of the traders out. It got a lot of the guys that, all the groups that make the price fluctuate on a very daily basis. It's all your crypto hedge funds. But no, but it got a lot of that fluff out. So, Ethereum for the past 3 days has stabilized quite nicely. It had a very strong day the last day. I think it was 9.7 or 10%. So for it to drop, it was really nice that we ended that cycle because now we're going to start a new cycle. It's going to be much more bullish, just if history has indicated anything. So then that deals with the second thing that you brought up was this kind of question of volatility. So that's why we're building these new stability controls. And we're very glad that we're doing it without a stable coin. Because that's kind of the hot thing right now, but stable coins are very centralized, some of them.
Yes.
Other ones are not, it's very questionable what they do. So that's why we're very proud that we're able to achieve stability without stable coins. And then the third part of that, they use fiat. So how do you get them to use cryptocurrencies, or why would they?
Yes.
And right now, the Gen 1 platform is very tailored, or it's very competitive, extremely competitive in terms of cost efficiency in places where you either have currency friction or it's mainly transactions between developed to developing nations or developing to developing.
Okay.
So for them, obviously, the inflation of Ethereum, for example, Venezuela or even Turkey right now, the inflation of what they're receiving,
Yes.
even Argentina and even Nigeria, the inflation, the weakness of their native currency, using cryptocurrency is actually not really a bad idea. It's also really not a bad idea because since there's these currency frictions, they can get this Ethereum in and be able to cash it at their own preference to actually get more buying power into their countries, into their businesses. So for them, they look at it as not only a tool to drive purchasing power growth, but obviously it kind of gives them more solvency in their businesses, whether it's a nationalized company or a private company in those countries. So for them, there's more benefits than just using the cost efficiencies of a blockchain. However, again, the reason why we're doing the Gen 2 thing is because it'll make it a little more mainstream. It really won't matter what the price of Ethereum would be or Ripple would be at that, or Litecoin at that given time, because no matter what, the fluctuation of your USD price won't be more than plus or minus 1 or 2%,
Okay.
which is pretty stable
Okay.
for crypto.
For crypto. Okay. Well, that's also a point because then I should understand that your target market is mainly countries that are so not necessarily Western countries, but more other countries, like other parts of the world,
Correct.
Asia
Correct.
and
South America,
South
Africa,
America. Yeah.
Southeast Asia. Like I said, even though the scope is very broad, really
Mm-hmm.
what we're marketing this Gen 1 platform, so to speak, is mainly to those places because in their current statuses they have a lot to gain.
Yeah.
And they're in that place where they're looking at alternatives just because of the kind of vulnerability they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're looking at this as a tool to dig themselves out of the holes that they're in, so
Okay.
to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. So where, I mean, do you have a specific geographical area where you have, I mean, maybe you have already started since you were mentioning your function,
Hmm.
your life for 32
Yeah.
days or, yeah.
Yeah. So far the kind of the geographical locations that we're representing now, it's specifically Nigeria, Senegal, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Chile, and Singapore, and then actually Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the where all the buyers and sellers have been registering from. And then we have people that are hopefully getting ready to register, and they're coming out of Russia and Australia. And that's really so far the scope of what we're representing. So actually a very widespread in terms of where they are around the world. So even though even though it's 4:45 a.m. here, it's really not too bad. I mean, I'm up pretty early all the time, talking to all these different groups.
I feel guilty now.
So no, don't feel guilty at all. I mean, I don't sleep much anyway. I'm kind of a big nerd, so it doesn't matter.
Well, it's good to take care of your health as well. Well, yeah, I kind of feel guilty because I'm thinking I'm grilling you at 5 a.m. So, yeah. Um, well, okay then. Thank you so much, Matthew,
Hmm.
for your time. And to anyone who is watching or for for the purpose of this recording, thank you to all of you for watching Pitch Investors Live, all the way from Colorado and London in just one application. And again, I guess that's the beauty of not only, let's say, decentralization of investment, but also globalization and where technologies it's going towards right now. And I think it's an exciting space, and what you're building, what we are all doing, and I hope and I think that let's say in 10 years time we'll be in a different place
Oh,
where
I
a lot
totally
of
think
these
it'll
things will
happen.
be much more mainstream than now. Um, for everyone, thank you for your time, and don't forget to download Speech Investors Live's app on your mobiles and get out there and seek your next opportunity if you are an entrepreneur, and make the most of what technology has to offer. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. I really
Bye.
appreciate the time.
We'll connect.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Bye.